morning. I'm Todd Healy, and on behalf of my partners Carolyn Smith and Celeste Moy, would like to welcome you to this edition of Coffee with C3. Many of you know the format. As long as it takes to drink a cup of coffee, we want to share something with you that's either relevant from the insurance industry perspective or from a best practices perspective. A month ago, Chuck Hollander shared with us during our Consume and Converse meeting a concept regarding procrastination. He said that 40% of the things we work on, either in client acquisitions or in getting clients to take action, get procrastinated and get delayed. Of those, half never get implemented. We all agree that's a very expensive proposition for all of our firms. So what he shared with us, a tool that he used, was a compass. And on the compass, at the northern point of the compass, we find clients or prospective clients who are satisfied with their current situation. Rebecca, are you able to pull that up? If you visualize a compass or a clock, at 12 o'clock on the compass, clients are satisfied with their situation. Our job is to make them aware of potential gaps between their current situation and their objectives. So we want to make them aware of those situations. Once they're aware, we have to get to the point of finding out if they want to solve that problem. Remembering Chuck said clients only solve big problems, not little problems. So we need to get consensus they want to fix it. Once they say yes, they want to look at options, they want to fix it, we move to those options and we explore those options, we model those options, and we move them back to the point of being satisfied with implementation. So that was a concept that he shared with us. Today, we want to share with you some of our experience in using the compass and working with it internally and with some of the clients and advisors outside the firm. Things that we've learned over the last 10 years of working with Chuck. If you have questions or observations, please post them in the chat room. We'll get to those hopefully before the end of the call, remembering we'll end sharply at 8:45. As we conclude our call, we'll also mention the fact that Chuck's going to do a workshop a week from tomorrow, a 4-hour workshop, more extensive, and we'll give you a little experience about that, a little information. Celeste, would you mind kicking us off here with some of our experiences internally?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a lot about using the compass with our clients, but beyond that, we also use it internally to track our cases so that we know where we are in the process with each of our clients. And we save that data in our CRM so that it's easy to see when we run our reports. So for example, if we already met with a client and made them aware of a potential risk, we would categorize them as aware. If the client decides to move forward in correcting that issue, we would then categorize them as fixed and so on. We also have a very thorough policy review process to which we apply this exact same methodology. Many times after we review the client's policies, they're satisfied with their coverage. However, it is important for us to keep track of that for future reviews so that we can reference it at that time. There might also be other parties that are involved, such as other advisors, maybe trustees, and we need to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So this method helps us keep track of all of
that. We thought this morning it might be interesting to share an example of when there's more than one big problem. That was the experience we had recently with a business owner and her advisory team. The owner, i.e. Mom, we'll call her Sally today, and her 2 sons were very active members of the management team. And Mom's current plan was for the sons to inherit the business upon her death. Well, recently the business had been valued at over $50 million. And so this led to Mom becoming aware of an estate tax looming problem. So Mom organized a meeting of her advisors to talk about that very situation. Early on in the meeting, there were various ideas shared with Mom, Sally, for freezing the estate and different ways that she could begin to transfer some of the business interest to her sons. What was quite surprising to all the advisors, after some discussion, the Mom stood up and kind of very firmly said, "Hey guys, I want you to realize I'm still in the process of actually accumulating or building my wealth. I'm in my early 60s. My mom is 95 and very active and healthy. I've got a long runway yet. I'm not in the mode of starting to do the transferring that all of you have been discussing. So the big aha for all the advisors was Mom had two goals. She had a goal for planning for the estate taxes, and she was very interested in hearing ideas and how to continue to grow her business. So the aha, looking back, was it was kind of easy to make an assumption. Mom was ready to talk about estate taxes, so we moved right into that. When looking back, it would have been helpful to have spent more time getting clarity around what all her goals or problems may be. And if we think about it, many of our clients may have more than one item on the table, and a good practice would be to get them all out there, prioritize them, see those that are interconnected, and then build a plan around those that they most want to work on fixing. I guess the old saying, you don't know what you don't know, is really true. Well, one last example.
Caroline,
Yes.
may I jump in quickly on that case because it was so interesting. You know, we made the assumption that 50 million was all she needed to live on. And she not only made it clear that she was still accumulating, but that 50 million was not sufficient to generate enough income for her lifestyle. And her husband quickly jumped in and agreed and said, no, she can't live on that. It was just a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Todd. Again, it was another one of those quote assumptions we made without having more of a complete discussion. So that was always kind of a hallmark in our mindset. While we talk about the problem, there may be several issues that a client wants to deal with, and they become interrelated.
Right.
On that note, would also like to share, you know, oftentimes as we go around the compass with the client, we make them aware of different opportunities, but they're really satisfied. They're not, even though they see there are other opportunities or things they could do, it's not something that's of importance to them today. Well, a reminder I'd like to share is also a recent experience that a client had a change, i.e. grandchildren were born. And of course, they're precious and darling, and that has rocked their world. And so those items that were possibilities out there, but they really didn't have an interest pursuing, now they do. So the compass is a living, breathing tool. Because things will change, we know that where someone is on the compass and their interest, that too is going to change as their world changes.
It's a really good point, Carolyn. We have to remember that things change, and that happens often with our clients. I'll share a client example as well. We had an attorney reach out to our office regarding a client that had been gifted a significant amount of property by her aging parents. At that time, the property was valued at around $15 million. Both the parents and the daughter were Mexican nationals, no permanent residency in the US, and they really spent most of their time in Mexico. The attorney referred the client to us because he was not an estate planning expert and didn't really understand her estate tax exposure, especially being a foreign national. When I met with the client, she was satisfied without the coverage because she was not aware of her estate tax exposure. In Mexico, there's no specific inheritance or gift tax, so this was a completely new concept to her. I explained that in the US, a person's estate is taxed at their death, and that tax is about 40% of the estate value. So you can imagine the shock when she heard that percentage. We also discussed the exemption, but as a foreign national, her exemption is only $60,000, as many of you on this call are aware. So what that meant is that at her death, her estate was going to be subject to about a $6 million estate tax. She was now aware of the issue and quickly decided that she wanted to fix it. So we explored options. And because she was very young, or relatively young, in her mid-40s, healthy, we were able to find a very competitive option to cover this $6 million estate tax exposure. The client understood that it made much more financial sense to insure the risk a fraction of what it would have cost the family otherwise if they had to liquidate other assets or even sell off some of this property that had been in the family for a really long time and that had a lot of sentimental value. So we placed the policy. The client was now back to satisfied, knowing that her it was going to be protected.
Thanks, Celeste. Great example. We're in the process this week of wrapping up a life settlement case. Business owner owned a key man policy on one of his employees. The end of the 10-year period was coming up. The client did not want to keep the policy. The business owner, they did not want to convert it. And they were satisfied with just letting it terminate with no value. We made them aware of the life settlement market. They said, yes, we want to explore the options. Long story short, we ended up selling the policy. The client got back all the premiums that they'd paid during that 10-year period and an additional 40% on top of that. So very, very satisfied. They got back to the point of being very satisfied, very pleased. We're using some of the excess funds to buy key man insurance on the current key individuals in the firm.
The one last thing I'll note is that we also use the compass with other advisors. It's easy for us to assume that other advisors are aware of our various areas of expertise, but in reality, most of them are not. A few months ago, Todd and I met with an advisor that's been a partner with our firm for many years. Todd's known him for a long time. And as we were going through some of the examples of our recent cases, the advisor shared that he was not aware we could do some of these things, such as life settlements, premium finance, long-term care, foreign national coverage, or even that we were able to work with clients outside of Texas and the majority of other states. He had always thought of us as life insurance experts, didn't really understand the full spectrum of our capabilities. So it became very clear to us that we needed to do a better job of using this same methodology with our advisors. And so since then, we've been implementing it as well.
You know, our joy is when we get to work with the team of advisors like those of you who are on our call this morning. And what we've also experienced is that when the team of advisor comes together, it's not unusual that one or two of the advisors may have been working with the family or members of the family, may have a deeper relationship with one of the generations. And so we found it to be a best practices to, as the group of advisors are beginning to collaborate, to use the compass to do a check-in of where they see the client is on whatever the matter or matters are that we are focusing on. And it's been interesting to see, just because of people who have different seats at the table, have sat at the table longer, that they have a different perspective of where the client is on the compass. So collectively, it's become an easy collective way to make sure we've all shared the information we intended to, but now see that we need to, as there's that difference around the compass. So we've really, as I hope you've heard this morning, many different ways we use it internally, externally, and on projects.
Thank you, Carolyn and Celeste. Rebecca, we got a couple minutes. We're bumping 15 minutes. Any questions have popped up or any comments?
One popped up asking, do you share the compass with a client to lead them through the process, or is it something you just use internally?
Okay, great question. We actually use it with clients often. We had a recent situation with a young couple that had been referred to us. They were going to inherit a tremendous amount of money. I had the initial Zoom call with them and talked about the fact that we needed to make sure that they were aware of any potential issues. They said, really appreciate it. We've got legal documents and get them to you. And after a couple of 3 weeks, I hadn't heard from them. I followed up with a Zoom call, used the compass, went around the compass and found out that in fact, they didn't have any of the legal documents they thought they had. So I confirmed they had really moved from being satisfied to aware, and it made it a top priority for them. As we close, a couple of things. We do have a workshop with Chuck next Friday from 8 to 12. This compass concept seems very easy to understand and grasp on the surface, but as we get into it, we find it really helps to have a common language within the team. So that's what that 4-hour workshop will do. We'll have workbooks, we'll have breakout rooms where firms can go off as a group. So it's by firm, it's $500 per firm. Usually it's $1,000. And if you're interested in that, if you haven't already signed up, please let us know. We have a couple of spots that are still open. And I guess I'd just like to close with the fact that even using the compass, when we get around to the point of looking at options, exploring options, sitting down with the client and advisors, sometimes they still don't implement. As the statistics show, still half of them don't do anything. And we've just gotten to the point where we've had to realize we can't care more than the clients do. And with that, we'll close and say thank you for joining us. And remember, we're one day closer. Have a great day.